Okay, hello. Today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite things. Just kidding. Not at all one of my favorite things. In fact, probably one of the things that really absolutely drives me nuts and annoys the hell out of me. And that is corporate buzzwords, starting with my least favorite, bring your whole self to work. Now, you've probably heard about this in some company town hall, or seen it on a PowerPoint slide, or seen it on some HR training campaign. Be yourself, be valued, feel free to express who you really are. I mean, right? That's what those things say. And what's not to love about that? I mean, that is amazing. Wouldn't it be great for us to bring our whole selves to work? Yeah, maybe, but is that really what we mean by that? Because I feel like what we really mean by that is bring the version of yourself that we find comfortable and convenient and on brand. And so don't bring your whole self. Here's the thing. I don't know that I disagree with that. I mean, I don't disagree with what it really means, which is bring the version of yourself that makes sense for this work environment. I disagree with the framing of it, because the framing sort of sets you up for failure. The framing of it is bring your whole self to work. And then we think that we have to bring our whole selves to work. But do we really? Let's talk about that. But before we go too far, let's talk about how we got into this mess. Well, I guess I think it's a mess. Maybe you agree. I don't know. But so in the 1900s, definitely not 1900s. In the mid 2010s, Mike Robbins wrote a book called Bring Your Whole Self to Work. And, ideally this sounded super great. And I think it was at a time, and maybe we're all still feeling this way, where we're looking for more authentic expression. And we're wanting to be recognized for our unique individual selves, all which is wonderful. The concept of the book was be authentic. Utilize the power of appreciation. So you show other people that you appreciate them, and show show more gratitude, right? Don't be a corporate drone. Embrace a growth mindset. Lots of books written about that. Carol Dweck, which is amazing. Making sure that your brain stays active and engaged, and that you have a can-do attitude, and that you look towards the get or done. All excellent. I love that. Create a championship team. I'm not sure I really understand that, but I think the idea is that if everybody thinks this sort of same way, and everybody's driving towards these things, and everybody's authentically themselves, and everybody's able to express themselves, and everybody's able to appreciate each other, and everybody's got this, get or done attitude, then you're going to have a championship team. Agreed. Sounds great, I think. Encourage sweaty palm conversations. I think that's sort of another way of saying be authentic, right? Like if you can really engage with yourself, if you can really engage with others in a way that is honest, then sometimes those moments, there's going to be some harrowing moments, because sometimes you need to be able to have some uncomfortable conversations in order to move forward. Sometimes there's conflict, and we need to be able to work past that in a way. So we shouldn't be scared of having these discussions that are difficult. All of these things sound really good, and I love all of those things, but I love them so much that that's what makes me freaking nuts, because that's not actually what we're actually getting to do. Because somewhere along the way, we turned some kind of a corner that meant we have to be super sensitive to absolutely every possible permutation of offense that exists out there, while still being able to express everything that can be controversial and that can trigger people. I find these things to be mutually exclusive. So one thing gives you the empowerment, encouragement to go express yourself without abandon, and the other thing gives you permission to be able to be offended at everything and express your offense with no abandon. So somehow this A and this B over here are probably going to crash into each other. If I want to be able to express that X thing, and I do so with great abandon and without any restraint. But person over here finds X extraordinarily confronting to themselves. But I've told them that it's okay for them to have sweaty palm conversations and to be offended because they're offended by this thing and they have the right to be offended at this thing. And now I want this person to tell this person that they're offended at their thing. This is never going to end. This person's going to express themselves. This person's going to express themselves. They're both going to crash against each other because both of them are fully free to express themselves. And somehow we just don't execute that particularly well. Now, in the ideal world, what we have is is two people who can see, wow, everything about you is entirely the opposite of the things that I value, and how interesting that is for you, and how wonderful that you get to sort of live in that world. That doesn't happen. What happens is, wow, everything about you is completely offensive to me. And because it's offensive to me, I shouldn't be subjected to watching it or being near it. Ergo, get out of my way. Okay, well, it's conflict. So here's the thing. Don't bring your whole self to work. I won't bring my whole self to work. You don't bring your whole self to work. Instead, we bring our best selves to work. Instead, we bring our best selves out into society. And instead, we bring a representation of the thing that knows how to express oneself without seeking to negate somebody else's self, where we decide that maybe somewhere in the middle is a place where you can honor me and I can honor you in a way where we can coexist peacefully. We don't necessarily have to agree, but we don't have to hate each other. We don't have to necessarily approve, but we have to be able to respect the humanity enough to be able to decide that we want to get along. Because ultimately, that's what we want. We want people to be able to express conflict. We want people to be able to express lack of agreement. We want people to be able to express different opinions in a way that is respectful and know when it's time to walk away and say, okay, we're not gonna see eye to eye on that. And that's cool. That's okay. And walk away. Now, there are some things where, there might be some life and death conflicts to each other. I'm talking about general society, day-to-day stuff, going to a grocery store and not engaging in fisticuffs, not throwing things at each other because we don't like something that somebody said or thinks or is wearing or is representing. Not feeling like we're entitled to express absolutely every emotion that comes our way, not feeling entitled to express absolutely everything with great vitriol. Because really that's sort of the beef, right? Is that if we could do this in a way that still respected kindness, that still respected the ability to get along, that still respected the need for sort of a social grace, then I think it's awesome. But baby steps. So baby steps would be, let's figure out how to get to a middle ground that says, look, maybe I don't even know that I need to engage with you in a conversation about whether I agree with you or I don't agree with you. Instead of bringing my guitar player self to my plumbing job, I'm going to bring the best plumber to my plumbing job. Instead of bringing my super politically engaged and active or religiously fervent or sports fanaticism or NASCAR favorite driver or favorite song of the year or whatever the thing is, and bringing that as part of the central theme of my job because I love it so much and I want to talk about it. Instead of doing that, let's play the role that we're hired to play. So if we're hired to play a barista, let's be baristas and be good ones. If we're hired to be accountants, let's be good accountants. Lawyers, doctors, etc., etc. And yes, we're humans. And yes, we shouldn't be drones. And yes, we should be able to express ourselves and our opinions. And I agree with all of those things, and that's what makes the tapestry of life so interesting. What I'm suggesting is that instead of doing it in a way like my way is the right way and I have the right to express myself and screw you if you disagree, is my way is the right way for me and you do you, boo. Maybe that's the theme. So I think it starts with creating real language structures that represent what we really mean, instead of gaslighting ourselves, instead of gaslighting our employees, instead of saying it's yellow when it's blue because we think yellow is more agreeable. Let's just be frank, but respectful. And so, no, we don't want you to bring your whole self to work because some part of you is an asshole. So we don't want that part of you that's an asshole to show up on the job site. I mean, unless, there are some jobs where maybe that's helpful, but in general, it's not. So instead of bringing your whole self to work, bring the role that you're asked to play, because that's what we really mean. And there might be some nuance in there. What we might want to say is, look, we don't want you to hide your certain characteristics of your personality. We want you to be able to express yourself, but we want you to, and continue the sentence, we want you to be able to express yourself in a way that still shows the respect for others as they're respecting themselves, in a way that still allows us to be able to cohabitate peacefully. That doesn't make for good marketing slogans. And so bring your whole self to work. Okay, but it's a lie. So, don't. Very few places can you actually bring your whole self to work. I mean, let's think about something as easy as what might be something that you would want to be able to represent as part of your whole self. For some people, it's their hairstyle, right? So let's think about, oh gosh, let's see. Let me see if I can really quickly look up his name. Drew Harvey. Drew Harvey, for example, is a truck driver, and truck drivers probably don't have a whole lot of guidelines around what their appearance standards should be. I don't know. I'm not a truck driver. Maybe different companies have different expectations, but Drew has dreadlocks, and it was expected for his job that he wear a hard hat. So these two things aren't necessarily mutually exclusive, but his employer said, you can't have dreadlocks. And he said, okay, if the requirement is that I have to wear a hard hat, then I will shave my head in the spots where it's necessary in order to make the hard hat fit on my head. And he did that, and he puts a hard hat on and it works. And his employer says, nah, but here's the thing. We don't want you to have dreadlocks. We don't think it's professional. Okay. So apparently the standard of professionalism in that particular environment meant no dreadlocks. He's a truck driver. So I'm wondering, where is he going that dreadlocks are offensive to somebody? In any case, it's not for me to figure out, but the reality is that that's one of those things that seems to be making its way around a lot and has for a bunch of years, that, if you're going to bring your whole self to work, maybe cultural identity is part of that. And maybe a particular hairstyle is part of that. Maybe ethnicity is part of that. And maybe it's better for your hair if you wear it in this way. A lot of Latin people have very curly hair, but they've been told that you can't have curly hair because it doesn't look professional. Now, they don't get told you can't have it. They just get corrected. It's like, oh gosh, your hair looks so much nicer when it's so much more professional when it's straighten it out. I don't know. I think that then we start putting these standards of what professionalism is in the same companies that talk about bring your whole self to work. Well, if bring your whole self to work includes a standard of professionalism that goes as far as dictating what your hair should look like, then the whole self part is kind of negated. So I'm not disagreeing that employers have the right to make a determination about what a professional look or haircut is. They can, but then they can't say bring your whole self to work. They have to say bring your whole self to work that conforms with these standards. And if part of you doesn't conform with these standards, don't bring that guy. We don't want that guy to work for us. And there's a whole number of things about this. Visible tattoos, facial piercings, particular types of slogans, or types of outfits that might make it. Speaking of outfits, this one really sort of baffled my mind. I don't know her name, but this woman posted a picture of herself, I think it was on TikTok, showing that she had just been sent home because she was wearing an outfit that was too revealing. And I got to tell you, I mean, I feel like I hear this pretty often, and then I see the pictures and I'm like, I get it. That's probably not right for the workspace, because generally in a workspace, in an office, you should be covered. That's just kind of, I don't know, workplace norms. So I was kind of expecting to see that. I was expecting to see some kind of a crop top, or maybe too low or too tight or something. I don't know. So I was actually really surprised when I saw she was wearing a cardigan and high-waisted jeans. And I believe she was wearing a long sleeve. But in any case, she was fully covered and wasn't revealing anything. It was form-fitting and she has a nice figure. So maybe that offended somebody. And that's a whole other issue that somebody needs to address internally that has nothing to do with what this chick was wearing. So I thought, well, that's sort of baffling because in this case, it wasn't it's lack of professionalism. It's, I can't concentrate when you are here because you look too good and it's distracting to me. Oh my God. That is so ridiculous. Maybe that's a subject for a different discussion. But I think in this case, again, the employer has their right to be able to send people home if they want to because they're made uncomfortable, as long as that's equally applied and as long as it's honest. In this case, I would just love to see what the language said, what the policy is. I wonder if there's something in there like, if you look too good and you distract members of the team, then we find that to be inappropriate. It's just so stupid. Listen, I guess my main trigger is that it's all gaslighting. It's that we use language in a way that's dishonest because we want to be able to articulate values that we wish that we had, when in reality, they're not practical to have. It's not practical for anybody to do whatever the hell they want in the workspace. It's not practical for anybody to be able to communicate using any words that they want, whenever they want, to whoever they want. That doesn't make for nice society. Nice society makes for people being polite to each other, even if you don't want to be polite, even if you don't feel like being polite, even if you are having sort of a shitty day. You're at work and you're not being paid to demonstrate your shitty day. You're at work and you're being paid to execute a job. And I'm not saying everybody has to, have a great day. You can have a shitty day, but you can't turn that out on other people, because that has nothing to do with them. That has to do with controlling yourself and your mindset. It's about being able to exist in a society with each other in a way that is respectful and kind. So I'm having a super shitty day and I just start barking at people and creating fights. That's not great. I'm having a shitty day and I say, hey, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm really not feeling it today. I'm going to need to kind of put myself in a timeout and work in a cubicle. At least that's honest and it gives people a heads up. So because we're not super emotionally attuned in many cases to be able to do that, I think it makes sense to be honest and say, look, you can't bring your whole self to work. You have to bring a piece of you that knows how to get along. The bottom line for me is use language in a way that for policies, in a way that reflects the reality. Don't create policies that are absolute horseshit and absolute lies, because that sets people up for failure. You told me to bring my whole self to work. And it sets people up for this sort of nonstop marketing barrage of bullshit that they hear, where they're told some things are this way when in reality they're this other way. This constant confusion about, but you told me to bring my whole self to work. Yeah, I know, but I meant your whole self in a professional way. Oh, okay. Then just freaking say that. Just honesty and conversation. I think if we can get to a space where we can communicate honestly, authentically, with real expectations, with the primary driver of figuring out how to create a social lubricant of kindness around each other, we're going to make people less crazy. Because I don't know about you, but it makes me absolutely crazy to hear two things which are in conflict with each other stated as the same thing or as the same policy. Makes me nuts. So I'll keep thinking about this. Let me know if it makes you nuts, if I've seen this entirely the wrong way. If there are plenty of examples of bringing your whole self to work that make a whole lot of sense to you, I'm sure there are. If you stayed this long, thank you. Give me a thumbs up, like, subscribe if you feel like it, and I'll catch you next time.